So this is the grave location of Harold Ballard. Harold was born 30th of July 1903. He passed away 11th of April 1990. He was a businessman and sportsman. And he was an owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs and held 60% of shares in their home arena at Maple Leaf Gardens. He became part owner of the Leafs in 1961 after being involved with the team from 1940. Harold became the majority owner of the team in 1972 and was the owner up until his death in 1990. As part owner, the team won Stanley Cups in 1962, 1963, 64 and 1967, with 1967 being the last time the Leafs won the Stanley Cup. Between 1978 and 1988, he also owned the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who played in the CFL, which is the Canadian Football League. They won the Grey Cup Championship in 1986. Harold was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1977 and the Canadian Football Hall of Fame in 1987. He wasn't without controversy though. He was jailed for fraud after being accused of redirecting funds from the Maple Leaf Gardens Limited to fund his private home refurbishments, amongst other things. Harold served a third of the 9-year sentence after being convicted. After his release, I have read that he likened prison to staying in a motel, and by all accounts, he had the time of his life in prison. There are lots of little stories about him online, and not all of them are favourable. I guess you could describe him as a colourful character. Unfortunately, Harold died from various health complications at aged 86 years old. Harold F. Ballard, April 11th, 1990. Beloved husband of Dorothy B. Higgs, beloved father of Mary, Elizabeth, William and Harold Jr. Rest in peace, Harold. So this is the final resting place of Margaret Ruth Springford. Margaret was born 1st of September 1921 and she passed away the 20th of November 2010. And she was a Canadian actress. She appeared in many CBC shows for television and radio. And in 1969 she won a Canadian Film Award for the drama Has Anyone Here Seen Denny? Margaret, also known as Ruth, has worked in TV, radio, on the stage and in film. She was in a film with Dean Martin in 1968. That film was Western 5 Card Stud. And she has a list of credits to her name, such as A American Christmas Carol in 1979, The Changeling in 1980, A Gift to Last 78-79. She was on the Frankie Howard Show in 1976 and Friday the 13th, 1988, and many more. She died at the age of 89 years after a short illness. Ruth Springford, actress. Oh. Children. These flat markers are all but disappearing in there. Babies. That whole section there has got like ground markers. Most of them are covered by grass or dirt. You can't see them, but it's all children, all mostly babies. They're so cute. So let's talk about Jeff Healey. Well, what can I say about Jeff Healey? One of my favourite musicians for sure. He was born in Toronto. He was blind from an early childhood due to a rare form of eye cancer. I think he was almost a year old when he did lose his sight. He was an awesome guitar player and awesome singer, in my opinion. He and his band sold millions of albums worldwide, and his best-selling album was See the Light. This sold over 1 million copies. The song Angel Eyes from that album was the Jeff Healey band's only top 40 hit and reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 in September of 1989. That song is also my favourite. Jeff received his first guitar at the age of 3 years old, and he had a unique playing style. He would play the guitar flat on his lap and his hands over the fretboard. He also played the trumpet, and his music career spanned rock, blues and traditional jazz. Jeff Healey was a Grammy nominee and a Juno Award winner. He was a radio personality, a jazz historian and a record collector. He owned over 30,000 records. So with the Jeff Healey band, he recorded 5 studio albums, and they contributed to the soundtrack of the Patrick Swayze film Roadhouse, a film in which Jeff and the band were featured. Good film. So Jeff's grave's just up there a little. He's obviously still remembered, still very well thought of, because I've seen quite a few people come and visit his grave. A childhood cancer survivor, Jeff supported the Sick Kids Hospital, focusing on Daisy Eye Cancer Fund, a fund that's even helped his own son. One of the many ways that he helped support the fund was through his annual It's a Very Healey Christmas charity show at his club Healey's. That club opened in 2001 and was one of 2 nightclubs that had Jeff's name, and both were in his hometown of Toronto. I think they are both long gone now. Jeff was inducted into the Canadian Walk of Fame in 2014, and in 2011 a park in Toronto was renamed the Jeff Healey Park. Jeff represented determination, equal opportunity and a passion to stay true to your dreams, no matter what the obstacle. Jeff passed away March 2nd, 2008 after a 3-year battle with sarcoma cancer. He was 41 years old, a very, very sad loss. He was so young, for Christ's sake. And here he is. The absolutely amazing, awesome Jeff Healey. Definitely one of my favourites. Such a sad, sad loss. Healey, Jeff and Jeffrey Healey. A man of faith in God, March 25th, 1966. March the 2nd, 2008. Loved husband of Christy Hall, dear father of Rachel and Derek. So this is the grave of Corbett Charles Denn, known as Corbs. So Corb was a professional ice hockey centre. He played professionally from 1912 to 1931. And this included 9 seasons in the NHL, which is the National Hockey League. He played for about 14 different teams. Those teams included the Toronto Blue Shirts, Hamilton Tigers, the Toronto Maple Leafs in the season that they changed their name from the St. Pats, Newark Bulldogs and Chicago Shamrocks. And he was a team member for 2 Stanley Cup winning teams, and that was in 1918 and in 1922. During the NHL 1920-21 season, he became one of only 5 other players in the history of the NHL who scored 6 goals during a single game. Corbett died aged 68 years after a long illness. Denn, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. In loving memory of Corbett C., 1894 to 1963, beloved husband of Mary E. Hellowell, 1897 to 1981. Wow. Corbett, Corbs, Denn. Planes have been flying over for ages. I think there's an air show this coming weekend in Toronto, so I'm wondering if they are practicing manoeuvres for that. I've caught them a couple of times. It's pretty awesome. It's also pretty damn loud, but it's cool. So I've parked myself under a tree because I'd like to talk to you and that will keep happening. about this monument here. So this grave and monument was erected in 2017 to honour the 75 named children they're named on the monument that are buried here. So this is 2 mass graves, and those graves or the plots are owned by Barnardo's Children's Charity. The children that are in this or these mass graves are many of over 100,000 who came to Canada from the UK between 1869 and the early 1940s. They came to Canada because apparently it would provide them with a better life, but it also would provide Canada with cheap labour. They were, or are known as, the British home children. Unfortunately, many of the home children were mistreated and suffered horrendous abuse. There is an article from 1905 on the death of a 15-year-old child. The autopsy showed she had been prodded with a pitchfork, was undernourished and poorly clad. She was bruised, she had severely frostbitten hands and feet, and she had a fractured skull. There is quite a lot of information that can be read on the internet if you want to learn more. So 75 children in the graves have been identified, and their names have been added to the monument. At least one of the 75 was murdered, another died of exhaustion. Some died from illness and others through suicide. 58 were children known as Barnardo kids, and 17 were born to young unwed mothers. And it is acknowledged that there are other children buried here, but their names or details are unfortunately not known. The name of one identified person does not appear on the monument, as her details were not found until after. But we can remember her now. Her name is Molly Brickstock, and she died of aplastic anemia on the 26th of February 1923. Rest in peace, Molly. So this is the final resting place for Adah Charlotte McKenzie. Now Adah was born 30th of October 1891 and she died the 25th of January 1973. Adah was a Canadian golfer born in Toronto. She founded the Ladies Golf Club of Toronto in 1924. Her first tournament win was at the Canadian Women's Amateur in 1919. She won this 5 times throughout her career. Her last win was at the Ontario Senior Women's Amateur in 1969. She would have been 78 years old at that time, so a bit of a lifelong golfer really. She won many other tournaments throughout her playing career. In 1933 she was named Outstanding Female Athlete of the Year by the Canadian Press. She was inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame in 1955 and the Canadian Olympic Hall of Fame in 1971. In the year 2000 she was inducted into the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame, and in 2003 the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. Adah, in fact, has a park named after her in Richmond Hill. You must keep in mind that in the 20s female golfers were viewed as an oddity. Didn't stop you though, Adah, did it? Well done on you. Adah Charlotte McKenzie. All McKenzies, all the McKenzie family here. Rest in peace to you all, and to Adah. Again, well done. Inspiration to women. So Park Lawn Cemetery, up until 1915, the cemetery was called Humbervale and was originally owned by local farmers. It's now part of the Park Lawn LP and has been in operation since 1892. The cemetery is situated in Bloor Street West in Toronto. Absolutely stunning. Lovely cemetery.